it's all right. It's all right. Just a slight technical hitch here. Hang on. Right, I might have to stand over here. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Arrows. The arrows on the keyboard.
Yeah, no, that doesn't move the slides on the screen, so I have to watch it, I have to talk to that. Right, thank you everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, I think. Thank you for the invitation to come and speak. Alice, I can talk about this for hours and hours, so you need to tell me when we've had enough or something like that. And I would like to get to some questions, so I'll go quickly. So what I'm talking about is, as Stuart touched on, a lot of things that I will also talk about. I'm probably going to give you a bit more of a local take on some of those options. But anyway, I'll get into it. So I think most people already know that Tamworth is growing. Council wants it to continue to grow and even to grow at a more rapid rate than it already is. Water security is the number one issue to achieving that goal, to continuing supporting ongoing growth. Stuart's already mentioned this, but I think it's important to repeat it again. Water is a finite resource and has many stakeholders. So if you want to take water, increase the amount of water that one or a group of stakeholders want to get access to, you invariably are taking water from another group or another individual. And that's important to recognise when you're talking about we want more of this. It means that there's a group out there that are going to get less of something, in most cases. And that includes the environment. So we, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but climate change indicates that rainfall patterns in the northwest are going to change. And again, the Namoi Region Water Strategies had a look at long-term historical records, and they are saying that things like longer, we think we've been in some droughts. Well, in the last 10,000 years there have been very extended droughts, and we should be ready for those or planning for those now. In 2015, the Council commissioned a study into, obviously we've just been through the 2007 drought, and we were growing then, so the Council asked for a study into what were the options available to the Council to improve our water security. That study looked at 24 options, lots of options there. You can see increasing the dam, new pipelines, effluent reuse, stormwater reuse. The investigation was fairly high level. We looked at how much water would each option yield, what was the cost of each option, both in terms of the capital cost and the operating cost, and then which were the best value for money from those options. And 4 options came forward as worthy of further investigation. The Council didn't make a commitment to any of them, just said that these were the 4 that were worthy of further investigation. Keeper Dam transfers, new larger Dungowan Dam, an off-stream storage upstream of Tamworth, and looking at the groundwater, the Peel alluvium, to see whether there was more water available there. When the Prime Minister came to Dungowan Dam and announced the new Dungowan Dam, it's fair to say that most of the investigation of the other options stopped. However, we did do and have done further work on the Peel alluvium, but it has shown that the more groundwater from the Peel alluvium, at least, is not really a viable option for a significant increase in Tamworth's water security. But I do want to stress again, what has become clear, and Stuart touched on this as well, is that there is no one solution for Tamworth. We need to be looking at a variety of options, and indeed we will be implementing a variety of options into the future to address our water security needs. One of the options that I do want to talk about in some detail, if I can, is this thing we're calling a purified water facility. So you may be aware that Bayada, the chicken processor in town, has a development consent to construct a new chicken processing abattoir out on the land they own at Oakburn. It's a very big project. You can see there the most important aspect, I suppose, is the increase in processing capacity to 3 million birds per week. So it's a very large abattoir. They will close the existing In and Out Street abattoir, and then we start talking about water. The new plant will consume up to 8 megalitres a day of water, which is about 6 megalitres a day more than what the present In and Out Street plant consumes. And 6 megalitres a day, when you consider that our average daily consumption from residential and business commercial operation is around 25 megalitres a day, that's going to be around 25% increase in our average daily consumption. That will significantly reduce our water security if we don't find a source of water to offset that consumption. So we told Bayada that we couldn't supply that potable water from our systems. You would have to do something else, and their consent requires them to build an on-site treatment facility, a reverse osmosis facility, to treat their wastewater that's produced by the plant and recycle it through the plant. We told them, council has agreed that we would effectively continue to supply them the same amount of water that they get at the In and Out Street plant, at the new plant, but we wouldn't give them any more than that. So Bayada has, well, obviously that's their development consent, but the council staff saw an opportunity here, and we proposed that instead of Bayada building a treatment plant on their land, council would build a larger treatment plant on council-owned land, and we would operate the plant as well. And we would source wastewater not just from Bayada's new plant, but Bayada has a rendering plant out in Glenartney as well. And you might also know that there's a lamb abattoir and a beef abattoir in very close proximity out there. So we would source treated wastewater from those plants, and we would purify that water in our purified water facility, and we would send the purified water back to those customers to use in their processes. If we had any surplus water from from that process, we could make that available to any of the other industrial users in Glenartney and in the new Tamworth Global Gateway Park that being developed at the moment. So some advantages for that. Well, obviously it allows Bayada to expand without impacting our water security, which is very important. Depending on the volume of water that the lamb abattoir and the beef abattoir, the amount of water, the potable water they supplement or change or with the purified water, then that's going to be a saving for our potable water, and that will increase our water security. Because we're not sending the wastewater that would traditionally went from these abattoirs to our wastewater treatment plant, because that's not going there, we don't have to augment the wastewater treatment plant the same sort of timeline that we were looking at before. So that will make, that saves council some money. Importantly, Stuart spoke about salt. Because of the treatment that abattoirs and large processing plants have to do on their raw wastewater to get it to a level where we will accept it into our sewers, that adds salt. The processes they use add salt to that water, and we can't treat salt at our Westdale wastewater treatment plant, so that goes straight through the process, and we discharge that at the effluent reuse farm, and it's relatively high in salt. So that makes the long-term application of that salt on the reuse farm problematic, and it's not as sustainable as we'd like it to be. So if they're not sending their treated wastewater to our Westdale wastewater treatment plant, they're sending it to this new treatment plant. We're improving the quality of the effluent that's coming from the Westdale plant, and that's improving the sustainability of our effluent reuse farm. The other issue is that, in my view, these companies are chicken processors, they're beef processors, they're lamb processors, they're not water treatment plant operators, and so it's a sort of a secondary consideration for them. this is what we do every day, and if we can use council's expertise to operate these plants, then that should mean that there's less risk associated with doing it. Some issues, obviously, it's quite expensive, $105 million. We're looking for state and or federal government funding for that. Again, Stuart touched on this, we will use a reverse osmosis processing for this plant. We will get wastewater from this plant, which is called a brine. It's high in salt. You're on the coast, you stick it back in the sea, fantastic. We can't do that here. What are we going to do with it? At the moment, there's only one thing that we think we can do with that, and that is to evaporate it in evaporation ponds. We're talking about 25 hectares of evaporation ponds. The plant will produce about 10 megalitres of processed water a day. So it's quite a large plant, and we're going to have to put this in this brine in the evaporation ponds. The water evaporates off and you're left with the salt. Has a life of about 20 years, and then we have to do it again, build bigger new ponds. And what do you do with that salt that you've left there? Well, it's not table salt, so there may be a market for it, hopefully in the future, but that's a serious issue for any inland centre that's looking at using reverse osmosis treatment for their water supplies, is what do you do with the wastewater. It is a more complex treatment process than we're used to, and attracting staff to regional centres is problematic. And the final one that I put there is these plants have to be regulated by the New South Wales government, and this is relatively new, and it will be a big step for the government to get their head around what level of regulation needs to be implemented to allow us to do this. And I think that's really key. So where are we at? Council produced a business case which we prepared that and submitted to the state government in seeking funding. We meet, or councillors meet, the mayor meets with state and federal government representatives. We're continuing to do that to press for this funding. Council is so confident that this is a good idea that the council has agreed to allocate $2 million of communities funds to undertake pre-construction work, so that we can be as ready as we can be. When the government gives us the money, we will be able to press the go button and get it built as soon as we possibly can. We've identified a preferred site for where the plant will be in Wallamore Road, and we've had our first risk workshop. Very important that everyone understands the risk associated with that, with the customers and the regulators, to try and start work on what needs to be done. I wanted to talk about some options that we're looking at or have been looked at. I don't want to talk about the Dungowan Dam option very much, except, and we've already covered off most of it, except to say that it will take 6 to 8 years to build if the government agrees to build it, so we're not going to see the benefits of it tomorrow. It will improve our water security position, but it's not the silver bullet. We need to do more after that. In relation to costs, we have reached agreement. The government hasn't signed off on this, but we have reached agreement. The dam will be owned by the state government. It'll be operated by Water New South Wales. The financial arrangement will be such that council doesn't have to pay, does not contribute towards the cost of the dam as an asset, only the operation. So if you own the dam, you have to depreciate the asset, and that at $1.3 billion that would bankrupt the council. So we have reached agreement that we'll only have to pay for the operation and maintenance of the asset, which is a great outcome if the government signs off on that. And we will own and operate the new Dungowan pipeline that is built as part of the Dungowan Dam project. Like everyone, we're waiting on the decision about funding, but we think that, well, in my view, the purified water treatment plant is such a good project that we should get that funding without the dam. Even if the dam went ahead, it should happen as well. Because we're talking about 6 to 8 years, the purified water treatment plant can be built in 2 to 3. So, importantly, what happens if the government says no? Well, we're no better off in terms of water security. we, the council, and that's the community, the ratepayers, everyone connected to reticulated water, will be left with the cost of upgrading Dungowan Dam, and we'll have to replace that part of the Dungowan pipeline that hasn't been built as part of this stage 1 works that are almost, well, 6 months from being finished. The estimated cost $150 million, but the price that the rate that construction costs are going up will be more than that. We haven't improved our water security at all, so we'll have to look at other ways to improve that. And in my view, the worst possible decision the government could make is to say no dam, nothing else. What we would like to see is no dam, but here is the money that was, or some of the money that was going to be allocated to the dam to do these other things. And I've listed some there: purified water treatment plant. We'd like to see the upgrade of the existing Dungowan Dam and pipeline, and obviously investigations on what other options could be there. So now I'd like to talk about some other options that we have started work on or have done over the last 10 or 15 years. I'm looking at you, Alice, so you can tell me when we're finished. All right. So one of the key ways to improve our water security, there's infrastructure and non-infrastructure options. One of the, well, it might be the only non-infrastructure option, is to change the way the water is shared. At the moment, in the water sharing plan that rules Chaffey Dam, there is no mechanism to bank the water saved through improved efficiency. That's really very disappointing because I'll show you a slide that I think demonstrates we've saved quite a lot of water through efficiency, but we haven't improved our water security because any water that you've saved goes in the bucket and is sold to someone else. So it's important, and I'll keep coming back to that we would like to see the water sharing plan change to reflect that, more transparent allocation of how the water is, more transparency about how the water is allocated. Stuart mentioned increase the volume of water held in Chaffey for Tamworth, and look at licences that have been inactive for a long period of time, buying up. The Peel River has got 33,000 megalitres of entitlement or licences out there, but the sustainable diversion limit is 6,100 megalitres, so we're a long way between and there are thousands, tens of thousands of sleeper licences, they're non-active. So that's one way we could possibly look at improving our water security. I have to point out though that the irrigators in the Peel, and as I said, if you're supplying more water to Tamworth, you're going to be supplying less water available to the irrigators, and that's obviously has to be taken into consideration. So, increased water efficiency, I mentioned this, it's 2007 when we had not the first drought, but the most recent drought in 2000. We have been concentrating on efficiencies across the council and the community, and this graph shows you the amount of water in the vertical line since 1991 that we treated Kalala. The red line shows the population increase in Tamworth, and the black line that runs on a bit of an angle is a trend line, which shows that even though the population has increased significantly, that our treated water amounts is actually falling. So I think that says that we are having some success in relation to our improving our water efficiency. Why are we having that success? Well, because we've introduced some of these things. So rebates, where you can apply for money to introduce originally things like 4-star washing machines and those sort of things. So we did that. We spent $2.7 million in that area for a long time, but it is pretty expensive. Groundwater, all of our groundwater, all of the green spaces along the Peel River are now connected to groundwater. They used to be irrigated using potable water. Something to note is that under the water sharing plan at the moment, groundwater allocation never fall below 51%. So it doesn't matter through the 2019-20 drought. If you had a groundwater allocation, you could always pump 51% of that entitlement out, as long as you had access to the water was still in the ground. So that's we can still have our fields green through the most worst drought on record. most of the easy options have been done. Further work in this area will come at a cost. And I think one of the areas that we're going to have to start looking at, we haven't done today, is commercial water efficiency. There are some savings to be made in business and how they use their water. But to what extent is the public community prepared to subsidise those commercial operations or improvements in commercial activities to reduce their water? That's going to be a question for the council. And again, why are we doing this if you cannot back us up? I'm going to stop there. There's a few other things but people might ask me those questions anyway. All right.